Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and in some cases save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. All right, today it is my pleasure to welcome AB Anwar to the show. AB was born in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, immigrated to the United States at the age of 10 in 1992, he thinks, to go to school. He was born with cerebral palsy and uses a power chair to navigate the world. He's played the sport of Boccia at an elite level since 1998, so that's over 20 years. And that's in 98, he competed for Team USA at the World Championships. He's attended a number of events, including the Boccia World Cups in places like Argentina and Portugal. He's won U.S. Nationals multiple times. He's currently ranked 7th in the U.S. And in fact, I think we're going to hear this part of his journey, but he was ranked number 1 before he took a little time off of the sport. He's became a naturalized citizen of the United States in 2015, went to undergrad at University of Illinois, has 2 master's degrees, one from Boston University and an MBA from Pepperdine. The crazy thing about AB is that we met years ago in his office building. I just randomly saw him and approached him and asked if he knew anything about adaptive sports. And it turned out he knows all about it. And he's one of the top Boccia players in the United States. Welcome to the show, AB.
Well, Brandon, it's great for having me. Thank you.
So, what comes to mind when you hear the title of the show, Sports Saved My Life? What comes to mind for you?
Well, I think for me, it's how I was introduced to Boccia. I moved to the U.S., when I was about 10 years old, and I had absolutely no idea that people with disabilities even competed in sports, let alone, competitive sports. Yeah. I think people around the world have heard of the Special Olympics. But I just figured those are, for people with developmental disabilities.
Right.
So, and they weren't competitive. So when I got here, I learned about the Paralympics, and I went from there, and I got introduced to Boccia in adaptive PE class.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Also, I've never heard of such a thing when I first got here.
Yeah.
As far as physical activity, well, as far as I was concerned, was physical therapy for anybody with a disability.
Yeah.
So
how important has sport been for you in your life? So that means, you've been playing Boccia for a long time.
Right.
Going on, 20 plus, almost 30 years. How important has sport been to you?
Oh, it's been amazing. It's enabled me to do a lot of things. I've been able to see the world because of Boccia. I've met a lot of people, and it's helped me learn how to, be part of a team and strive to achieve for that team, especially Team USA.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great. All right. Give me one sentence that describes you. Who is AB?
Determined. I think determination to achieve or to try and get to the highest level I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. All right. So now we're going to go deep into your childhood, which I actually don't know anything about. So I'm really excited to learn. Talk to me about where you grew up. What was life like back in Saudi Arabia? growing up with disability? When did when did your parents start to sort of figure out a plan for you?
Okay. Well, first I wouldn't say I lived. I was born in Saudi Arabia, and I was there until I'm 10 years old. So, while I was there, I went to a specialized school with a bunch of kids with other forms of disability. But at one point, they told my parents, there isn't much, very many other ways we can help him. He'd probably be better off going somewhere else. So, and then they looked into other places, other countries.
So describe, so you were born with cerebral palsy.
Yes.
Explain what that is and, kind of how it affected you in those early days and maybe a little bit about what you've heard from your parents about their journey. Because listen, I'm the father, right, of an amputee, and the parents' journey is important in these stories.
Yeah. So cerebral palsy is, the way I understand it, is probably damage to the brain, and it affects motor function. So I'm affected in all 4 limbs, but I have a dominant side, which is the left side. So my entire right side is much weaker than my left. So
even though you're essentially a quad,
yes,
right, all limbs are affected, upper and lower.
Exactly.
You do have one side that's stronger, and that's very characteristic, at least as I understand, of CP.
Yes. I do have my left side it's much stronger than my right, although not strong enough to be able to compete in sports such as wheelchair basketball, which is another reason why I think Boccia saved my life. It allowed me to compete in a sport, and otherwise I wouldn't have been able to compete in any. I've actually tried sports like wheelchair basketball. Yeah. There was a manual wheelchair soccer at one point. I couldn't get into it because I couldn't physically do it.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So cerebral palsy, as I understand it, is essentially oxygen deprivation to the brain.
Yes.
At some point before a birth, or maybe during a birth. Do they know kind of when it happened for you? Were you a preemie, or like what was the sort of the medical diagnosis and what happened?
I was a preemie. I don't know if the lack of oxygen happened during the birth or before, but I was born in the 7th month instead of the 9th. So, yeah.
And what did they know? And how long did you have to stay in the hospital before your parents got you home? And did they know you had CP then?
I do know that I needed an incubator, but I don't know how long I was in there for. But I do know that my grandmother said, "Hey, he needs to be, put in the incubator. I think he's still alive." So, yeah. But I don't know how long I was in there.
Well, so there was a question of whether you were alive?
Yeah, because I was so small and couldn't,
Wow.
Right.
And so what do your parents tell you about that moment?
They don't mention it much. They just say, "Hey, your grandma was the one that's like encouraged us to encourage the doctors to keep going and trying to help me." Yeah.
So is there some sort of terrible scenario here where your grandmother's not there and nobody makes a good medical decision here? Like what are we?
Yeah, no, I think they did the best. I got the best possible outcome. I believe I was in the incubator. I don't know for how long or when I was put in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't think they knew right away that I had CP.
So when do you think they understood that you had CP, or maybe a similar question? Sort of, when was there an official medical diagnosis?
I think it was, right when you're supposed to, advance developmentally or physically and start to at least, take a few steps. That's when, to me.
So you think it might have been around a year old or something, where you're
Right.
not able to kind of pull yourself up to stand and you're not trying to walk.
Right. And then obviously having one hand that's more dominant than the rest.
Yeah.
And then the other hand, yeah.
So it does happen in the CP community where there can be a cognitive or developmental impact as well, that the oxygen deprivation is severe enough. What do you think your parents understood from early days that cognitively you were alert and smart? I mean, you have more master's degrees than I do. I only have one. So cognitively you're a sharp cookie. So when did they, do you think they understood in those early moments that cognitively you're actually, you're fine, but it was more just the physical side?
I think they knew I was more fortunate than others, but they didn't know, how okay I was.
Yeah. And so did you get a power chair early on, or did you get manual chairs in those early days when you were young? What was
Actually,
the progression?
up until I came to the U.S., I was in a stroller. Yeah, and then
Just like a baby stroller.
yes.
So you were in a stroller until the age of 10-ish when you came to the United States.
Right. In my home, I would crawl around.
Okay.
On my hands and knees.
Yep.
And then to go outside or go other places, I'd be put in a stroller.
Yeah.
And then to get into cars and what have you, I had people carry me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So describe the home life. What kind of, did you have siblings? What were your parents like? What kind of a living environment were you in? You were in an apartment or a single family home? Describe a little bit more of that home life. Paint us that picture.
My parents have a single family home. They are both physicians.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the reasons. One of the reasons that enabled me to come to the United States is because my parents are who they are. And I have siblings. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister.
Okay.
They are all fully able-bodied.
And are they older, or are you in the middle, or?
I'm in the middle. I'm number 2.
Okay.
So, I have a younger brother and a younger sister and 1 older brother. Yeah.
And so you go to a special school for kids with disabilities. What was that like? Do you remember, being on the playground and hearing, how are you sort of treated in your community back in Saudi Arabia?
Right. Well, for the most part, I have to say we stayed around family. And then when I went to school, I socialized with the other kids. And of course, we had English and American teachers. So, that's, the extent of conversing with other kids that are not family members was that school.
And so your parents make the decision to come to the United States. So does your whole family come? Does a part of your family come? What is that? What does that look like? I moved around a lot as a kid, and it's not easy. I can't imagine changing countries, as a 10-year-old.
I'm sorry. I thought I made that clear before. Nobody came. So it was just me. So when I first came to the U.S., I was placed in a boarding school in Topeka, Kansas. for the first year
Okay.
I was here.
Okay. So you're 10 years old on your own in a foreign country,
Yeah.
going to boarding school. Okay. Was it a school for kids with disabilities, or you
Yes.
just?
Yeah. Yeah. It was called the Capper Foundation in Topeka, Kansas. And they basically said, okay, he can start off going to school here to improve his English. And, we try to catch him up to other kids his age, along with improving the language skills. And then, he'll eventually be able to be branched out to regular public school. So that was my.
We don't even let our kids go to like away camp in the summers, so I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
So you're transplanted to Topeka, Kansas, kind of a random city in the middle of the country.
Right, exactly in the middle.
What's going through your brain? Do you remember those early days? Do you remember being put on a plane and shipped off to America? Like, what do you?
Well, when I first moved to the U.S., I was with my parents. They brought me over, and I remember we stayed at the Ronald McDonald House.
Okay.
Yeah, for a while, and so that I can get acclimated to the school, and then obviously. We stopped using Ronald McDonald houses after, we started just using regular hotels whenever they'd come over. And then I was, kind of just placed into boarding school life, and then coming to school every day. And they left a few weeks after, getting me settled.
I mean, do you remember that when they left?
Oh, it was. I don't remember it exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was traumatic for me.
I mean, it's really young.
Yeah.
It's really, really young. So how did you acclimate to school? Were you a good student? Did you find friends? Was it a good environment for you?
Yeah, it was easier to make friends because it was small classes. Each class had a few kids, and really loved my teachers. Classroom, it was the school setting was similar to what we had at my special school in Saudi.
Okay.
Yeah. So my real start came when, I was branched out to regular public school about a year later. So that was.
So what happens then?
Let me just add that after that first year, the boarding school closed down the boarding portion of their school.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So my my folks had to scramble again to figure out, okay, where's he gonna stay? So I stayed with sort of a host family, like you do with exchange students. I don't know if you
Sure
heard of that. Yeah. So I stayed with a sort of like an exchange family in their home, and I went to a regular public school in the district. I think at that time it would have been like, for 10 or 11 years old, it would have been like fifth grade, fifth or fourth grade. Yeah.
And they found a family in Topeka, so you stayed in Kansas.
Yeah, I stayed in Kansas, and they in Topeka, and I stayed in total with 3 different families. in Topeka.
And that gets you all the way through high school?
Yes. Yep. That gets me all the way through high school.
And then this is so fascinating. So would you like fly home to Saudi on breaks to see your family, or would they come visit you? Like, well, how did you stay connected to your family?
In the winter and summer breaks for sure, because summer breaks, yeah, as you know, are 3 months. But in the winter, the first couple of years, I went home in the winter as well, for the much shorter 2 weeks.
Mm.
Yeah. But that's how I remained connected. Yeah, that's largely how I did it all throughout. Yeah.
That's a really wild story.
Yeah.
What do you think you learned from being on your own, basically, for most of your, or not half of your childhood almost?
Yeah. I would like to think that it was being on my own, but it really wasn't, because I had, I had an American family there pretty much all the time, that would make sure, hey, you need to go to class, go to physical therapy, go to whatever after school activity you were doing. So
you didn't really get to do your own thing. You were
right.
just...
Yeah. I mean, my own thing, honestly, I'd say I didn't get to do that until I left for college in, to Urbana-Champaign.
And so for you, early days, was going to college always a plan? Was that...
Yes. That's the other thing. In Arab culture, going to college was almost automatic. We never thought about, how are you going to pay for it, or it was just, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
By hook or by crook, as they say.
Yep.
It's just a thing you just did.
Okay.
So that was never in question. But where I was going to go, that's obviously, I always knew it was going to be in the U.S., but I just didn't know where. Sure.
Well, and Illinois is a great school.
Right.
So that's a great accomplishment for you. So what kind of teenager were you? What were those years like? Like, you're mainstreamed in school, right? You're not in a special school.
Right.
You're navigating in a power chair, I guess.
No. My first few months of public school, or high school, I should say, I was still in a manual chair. So that first semester, that was really tough.
So, but you're by your own admission, you're kind of weak, right? Your upper body is not that strong. So are you just moving super slow through the hallways to get to class? Like, are you late to every class?
Well, I got other people to push me. Class.
Like assistants, or like another student that would just grab you and take you to the...
It was if it was another student, it'd be great. But most of the time it was a para, what do they call them?
Like a
professional.
Yeah, like an assistant.
Assistant. Okay. The classroom para, I guess.
So I hear stories in the United States of kids with disabilities really having a tough time getting through their teenage years. I don't think kids, really understand disability, and so they can be pretty sharp, pretty mean. Did you face any harassment or bullying? Were you able to integrate, into, with your classmates well? Like, what was that side of it? Sort of that social and emotional side of just living with a disability.
For me, I was able to, integrate pretty well. On like some classes, or that's when I was, separated sometimes from my regular class, and part made me feel, I don't know if this is a great thing for me. But that's the only part that I was like,
when you got pulled out for like a
yeah,
thing.
right.
So where did you pick up this social skills, the tools, the confidence to sort of integrate? Because that's not an easy thing to do for any kid, let alone a kid with a disability.
Right. I think it's because I had, had great teachers, and I had the, teachers that from my specialties, the specialized school, the Capra Foundation, that were becoming like family to me. And they would always, tell me or explain how to navigate this, or how to do a particular thing that you needed to do.
That's nice. So because of that first year, you had a little bit of a team of people around you, even if they weren't being paid as teachers or whatever, but they were sort of still in your life and still supporting you.
Right. And around the second, I think it was seventh grade year, I remember I told you I stayed with 3 different families, right? The third family that I stayed with, the mom, or my American mom, her name is Lee Lobmeyer. She also had a disability. She had cerebral palsy as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she was able to, explain, this is how you can do this even with your disability. And here's how, later, you would hire personal assistants. Mm-hmm. And so that helped me a lot as well.
So was she, how mild or severe was her CP? Was she more mild than you?
No, she was probably had a more severe version of CP.
Oh, so she sounds really important to you then, in terms of just having a voice of not just empathy and understanding, but actually knowing the system and how to get things done.
Right. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break to learn more about the Equipment Loaner Program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
Have you talked to your parents about that decision to send you to the United States? And what would they, like, if I had them on the phone right now, what do they say about that decision? You're so young.
Yeah.
This isn't sending you to college.
Right.
As an 18-year-old, you're in some of the most important developmental years of your life. And they're trusting this school, and then trusting these other families are going to raise you to be a good human being, an honorable, trustworthy, competent human being. I can't imagine that decision.
Yeah, it had to. I've never, got into it too deeply with them. I'm just grateful they did it.
You are. You don't harbor any resentment to the decisions that they made.
No, not at all. I think it was a great decision. In fact, I remember one time my mom got a call. It was a mom of another patient, or a patient of hers, she was telling me, she was asking my mom for advice. She's like, my son has CP. What do I do? And she hung up the phone to tell me this. I was like, well, tell him to send him to America. She laughed and said, do you think everybody can just send their kids to America?
I'm sure everybody cannot do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand that I'm very, very fortunate that I got to come to America. Even at the time, I was, as a student, or visitor, the whole citizenship thing that came much, much later.
Yes, I know. You were my text. You were joking that it took over 20 years to get here.
Yeah.
I don't know why we move slow sometimes in this country, don't we? So I'm really interested in the self-confidence part of your journey. When we met, you just have such a light. You're such a strong personality, and there's a kindness to you as well. But like, where do you think that self-confidence came from through your, those younger years going into high school and college, and kind of, like, where did that all come? Where did that come from?
I think it partially comes from my family. I don't think I'm all that self-confident myself, but being able to navigate throughout high school and college, and in another country, I think that was just an expectation from myself, because you're so fortunate to be able to do this. I was like, not everybody gets this chance. So even from those early days, you felt grateful to have the opportunity to be in the United States and get better support. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Because to me, that 10-year-old could go a really different direction. That 10-year-old could be mad, could be upset at his parents, and sort of almost like take a more negative outlook. And you don't have that.
I've gotten, I don't know. I mean, all my siblings, came to the U.S. for a college degree, and they left. All of them are now back in Saudi. But I got to do it from the very start. While they were going to school over there, I was already here. So I had a completely different experience than what they have, and I feel fortunate to have been able to do it. Yeah,
it's an extraordinary story. It really is, AB. I'm just so appreciative of you sharing. Okay, so what would you tell the parents of a child born with exactly what you were born with? And I don't know if they're born in the United States or they're born somewhere else in the world, but I think you're right. Most people can't just ship their kids off to the United States. So you got to kind of probably mostly make do with what you got.
Right.
What do you tell them in terms of how do you raise this child, and how do you instill the confidence that you have to sort of take on the world? And
I'd encourage them to promote independence as much as possible. Have them do as much as they can for themselves. Even with me, throughout elementary school through high school, I never had a personal assistant, PAs, to help me with ADLs, daily living activities, so getting dressed. That was important. That also helped me build confidence, being able to do it myself if I needed to later. Even though now it would take me, if I did it all myself, it would take 2-3 hours from my day just to get dressed. But
back then you did it quicker.
But back then I did it, much quicker. And I learned to schedule time to be able to do this or get ready here. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So these days you do have a personal assistant that helps you, so you can kind of get up and going in the morning and kind of shut things down in the evening. Or what point of your day do you need help?
I have an assistant in the morning that so they help me shower, get dressed, and then they make my meals for the day, or like breakfast, and then they make dinner that they just keep in the fridge, or I put in the fridge, and that's all I have as far as personal assistants go. So they come in the morning, help me get ready, and then after that, I don't need much help at all.
Got it. Okay, so before we shift into the sports part of this story, you shared before we started recording that you got married a few years ago, that you have a child. So where did you meet your wife? Give us a little bit story give us the family update right now.
So I met my wife in Egypt. I went to Egypt and I met her there. We got married. And
well, hold on. What were you doing in Egypt? Just a vacation?
Vacation, family visit. Yeah, my dad is originally Egyptian.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're just like walking around the pyramids, and then there she is. Like, how did you find this? How did you find your wife?
No. I met her through an aunt of mine.
Okay.
And then we met up, and we courted for 2.5 years.
And what does that look like? Are you flying back to Egypt whenever you can get time off of work? And
I flew back to Egypt about 4 times, and we would talk on the phone for every day for those 2 years.
That's so hard. So was it love at first sight? Like, did you see her and you're like, oh, she's the one? And then
No. I was like, this isn't gonna go anywhere. This is gonna end soon.
Really?
Yeah.
But she thought differently?
Yeah, she thought differently.
So she thought it was love at first sight, but you didn't.
I didn't think so. I was like, this isn't gonna work out. But 2.5 years later, we were still together, so we got married.
So you thought it was more.
And I should just add that they're still over there. Yeah.
Oh, your wife and your child are still in Egypt.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So she wanted to get married before we are able to. So she was like, I can't come to the U.S. if we're not married, because where would I stay? I can't stay with you if we're not married.
Right.
So, as you know, traditional values over there, they're so apparently important.
You don't want to mess with those values, right? You don't want to mess with that.
So, So in total, the 4 years, we've been married 4 years now. We've actually spent time together for a total of 3 months.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're like a pro at long distance relationships.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. You haven't lived with your parents since you were 10 years old, and you don't even live with your wife now.
Right. And that's taken forever. Remember, immigration took me, my citizenship took 20 years.
Yeah. But, okay, so what's the plan with her? Are you trying to bring her over?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring her over. We're in the middle of it right now. But as you know, along with the whole world, everything closed down because of COVID.
And
that includes U.S. embassies.
I know, right? I mean, thank God things are opening up again.
Yeah.
How old? You have a son or a daughter, and how old are they?
I have a son. He's going to be 3 in September.
Oh man!
And I have a stepdaughter. She's 12.
Very cool. Very cool. And they would all come over
Yes, hopefully.
in the next year or two. Are you optimistic, or what do you think the timeline is?
I'm hoping within the next year.
Okay.
But again, there's no guarantees.
No guarantees.
Yeah.
Holy cow! What a story.
Yeah.
How is it being a dad?
Being a dad and having a disability, I feel like he got gypped or something. It's
Why?
a little unfair because there are certain things that I can't do with him, like play around in the ground.
Sure.
Being able to pick him up whenever he's crying, being able to, make sure he doesn't, climb the windowsill or, to pull him down, so he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
I can do that now, but I have to be able to say, hey, you need to pull him, get him down from there,
Yeah.
It's more monitoring than actually doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's that part of disability. I never expected it, but I think you have to be a dad to actually realize that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, he'll outgrow those years where you have to really monitor, and I would encourage you to think about all of the things that you're going to teach him.
Yeah.
That you've learned through your disability, and we'll probably get to that a little bit later in the show. But I just feel like you've got a lot to offer this young boy, and you might miss some of the physical stuff. But listen, if he was born with a disability, you might not be able to do things with him. So
right, yeah.
So you can't. I mean, that was my stress when my son was born. Was like, oh my gosh, I thought being a father was being physically active with your child. I didn't know adaptive sports existed, and I think that was, looking back on my own mindset 16 years ago, it was a more narrow mindset than it should have been.
I was like, wow, look at all the things that my dad did for me.
Right.
From sending me here to be, my dad is still largely, when I go back, for example, he largely does my care.
Yeah, right.
Even to this day.
Yeah.
But that's a big reason why I don't visit a lot, so he doesn't have to. But that's neither here nor there.
That's crazy. All right. Well, thank you for sharing the family update. I hope they get over here in the next year. I can't wait to meet the family once they.
Yeah.
I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
I think you mentioned earlier that you first got your eyes on Boccia in PE class or adaptive PE class. Describe that, and was that love at first sight, or did the game love you more than you love the game?
No, I think that was love at first sight. First, I should start by saying I'm a very competitive person. If I can compete in something, oh, I'm gonna do it.
Is that why you did well in school? Like you were like trying to outdo your classmates?
You know what? I always wanted to be, be the first in the class, or have your name put on the board as getting the 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. I'm starting to figure you out. I got you.
Right. So I was introduced to Boccia when I first got to school.
At the boarding school?
At the boarding school, yeah.
Okay.
And then when I really fell in love with it is, I believe that same year, I stayed for summer camp. And at that summer camp where we did, swimming, bocce, and all other sports, they had a bocce tournament just internally.
Okay.
And
here we go.
And I won that tournament. Yeah. So, and having that structure, and I was always into sports since forever, but mostly it was watching.
Sure. So you love sports in your heart always.
Yeah, always. I'm the biggest soccer fan.
Are you?
Yeah. I used to crawl around in my house in Saudi and kick around a ball, like a ball filled with air. One of those. Do
you go to local games here in LA at all?
I do. I've been to a couple of Dodger games. I haven't made it to a Rams game, but I want.
Well, what about a soccer game?
Soccer game? Not really. No, I haven't.
All right. Well, we should talk about that. Okay. So there was an inner love for sport. You do your first bocce tournament and you win it.
Yeah. It was a summer camp tournament.
That doesn't matter. Did you get a trophy or what?
No, I think we just got a ribbon. Yeah.
And so that's early 90s, right?
Yeah.
By late 90s, you kind of move up the ladder and you're starting to compete, for Team USA, and in some of these bigger competitions. When did you realize you were really good?
Well, I started realizing that when I, kept repeating as champion of the national tournament. There was a few years in there when it was like 5 in a row that I would just win the tournament.
Against adults, against anybody.
Yeah, against whoever was in my division. As you know, Bocce's split into 3 different divisions. There's a BC1, BC2, BC3. The BC3s use ramp.
Is that you're a 3? You're a BC3?
I'm a 2. I'm a thrower. And then the BC1s have less, they're throwers as well, but they have less control. So they're more, is it spastic CP or actoid? It's where you can't control your body movement as well.
So you're in the, I would say, you're kind of in the hardest class with the athletes with the most functionality.
Yes, in the hardest. Okay.
So you're winning all these tournaments. At some point, you start to travel international for some of these world games. Well, give me like your highlight moment in international events. Was there one tournament that you'll never forget that was sort of like the highlight of your career?
Internationally, they were all great for me because, honestly, they're all great for me because I got to represent the U.S. Yeah. So, and I really felt as part of a team when we competed internationally.
Talk to me about your relationship with the United States and Team USA. So you already have this very grateful context for this wild journey that you had as a young kid. It sounds like the gratitude is still there when you talk about Team USA and getting to compete for the United States.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember I made the Paralympic team in, I think I shared this, in 2000, the team that went to the last time USA Boccia was at the Paralympics was 2000. And I made that team, but was later not allowed to go because, as you may or may not know, for the Paralympic tournament, citizenship is a requirement. So they had to find a replacement for me.
So were you so disappointed?
I was. And then somebody later told me, well, maybe you should try to play for the U.S. or for Saudi, in the future. I was like, you know what? If I don't get to fight for the U.S., I'd rather stay home.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you feel like your heart is here in the U.S.
Yeah. And I wanted so badly to fight even in 96 when we had it in Atlanta.
Oh, you were so young then, though.
Yeah. And I don't think in 96, I don't think I would have made the cut anyway because I was too young. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, at track you have to be 14. I think swimming might be the same, but
Boccia you had to be been 15. Yeah. So
yeah, you're right. You're right on the cusp there.
Right. Yeah.
So some folks listening may understand the sport of boccia, but can you just explain the sport a little bit, kind of paint the picture of, the athletes and how it works with the teams? You talked already about classification, which makes sense that there's these 3 classes that compete on their own against similar athletes, but kind of how does the sport kind of, lay out?
Boccia is a mix of darts, and billiards and chess. So, or darts and pool and chess, I guess. So you have 6 balls, 6 blue, 6 red, and then the jack ball. So you throw the jack ball out onto the court. That's your serve. And then whether you're red or blue, usually the person who starts has the red set of balls. They try to get as close as possible to the target ball. And then your opponent tries to get even closer and would continue to throw until he does or runs out of ammunition, runs out of balls. And that's how you would score, is how many balls he has closer than your closest ball.
And how big is the court? It's not very big, right?
No, it's about a little smaller than half a basketball court.
Okay. And it's typically done in a gym on a nice wood floor, or what's the
wood or tile.
Okay.
And you may or may not know as well that there is a stand-up version of Boccia. It's called Boccia. The Italian game, like Italian lawn bowling.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stand-up version. But
I love that game. I play with my kids.
Right? You probably have a set of balls.
I do. It's
pass outside, right?
It's so fun. It's a great sport. It's a great sport for just bringing to the park with the kids. And
so Boccia was adapted to have leather balls so that people with disabilities can propel them, or they go down a ramp.
So do you have any stories of so in the BC, was it one category where they use the ramps?
BC3
uses the ramps.
Yeah.
So with BC3, the athletes have an assistant who helps, right? At least what I saw in the Rio Paralympic Games, they have an assistant that is sort of moving the ramp and guiding the ramp. And many of these athletes don't even have the dexterity to actually initiate the ball. And so some of them have like a poker in their mouth.
Yeah.
And so they set the ball at a certain height on the ramp, and then they have to initiate, but they just poke it.
Right.
Which I thought was just the coolest thing to watch, because frankly, there aren't that many sports for quadriplegics in the Paralympics. And so I think this is one of the reasons why I love this sport, because it is designed for quads.
Yes.
But the assistant who's sort of centering or positioning the ramp cannot look at the field of play.
Exactly. They have to be told by the athlete.
Exactly, right? It's like, okay, a little left or a little right? And so the athlete is the eyes.
Right.
Have you seen a meet where the assistant gets caught cheating?
I've never seen somebody get caught like that. No, because that would be blatant cheating. But
so I watched this. This happened in Rio in one of the matches.
Really? Okay. So now, this is one of my issues that we're not covered as much. So Boccia does not get the.
It was so interesting, and we were riveted. We couldn't really figure out what went on at first, and eventually word got out to the crowd what happened. But they penalized that team significantly. Right. They moved some balls and took, I don't know what they assessed a pretty brutal penalty.
If it was a pair, was it a pair or a team? No, it had to have been a pair, right?
It might have been a
pair. So they took probably 2 balls away from them, or 1 ball.
I don't know what they did, but the other team won.
Right.
As a result of this penalty, because I don't think they were in the lead, and then the lead sort of switched after this, and the guys that cheated couldn't kind of make up the ground that they lost.
Right.
And I'm just going to tell you, AB, I watched a lot of sports. I watched probably close to 15 sports in Rio. I watched a lot of amazing matches. The celebration of that. I think it was a father-son team. I think the father was like the assistant basically on the field of play with the son, who is the competitor. It was the most amazing celebration I have ever seen in my life. The dad pulls this kid out of the power chair and they're rolling around the court. I mean, it was, because I don't think they expected to win. Until this little thing happened. So I don't know. So I'm just sharing a powerful memory for me. It was just so cool. But thank you for explaining the sport, and hopefully you'll send in some pictures so we can, layer them into this show so people can see what the sport is, because it's super cool.
I will. Yeah.
And it's so cool that quads can play. Like, it's really, to me, it's very special.
And that's why it gave me a chance to compete. Before Boccia, I kind of didn't know what sport I could compete in.
Sure.
And I have to admit that I tried track and I tried swimming, but I'd get these classifications where I'd be the only person in that class. So I'd automatically get, the first place ribbon or whatever. And that wasn't it wasn't very exciting for me.
Well, yeah, because you could do the CP field events in track and they have a hammer, and then there's one other implement that they throw. I'm blanking on the implement, but there's not that many athletes, not that many quads that are doing those events for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you took a couple years off, maybe to get married, have a kid, whatever. I don't know what else you might have going on.
Yeah.
But you're back, and, this seems like a great sport to age with. Do you see like an end to your boccia career, or do you feel like you could just kind of keep going?
No, I do see an end, because as you probably know, LA 2028 coming right here. So
is that the end?
That's the end.
Well, we got to make that team, man. We got to go.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to make that team.
I love it. AB, you've had a really interesting life so far. I can't wait to see where your journey takes you going forward. What do you think your purpose is?
Well, now I think it's trying to be a good dad. And hopefully providing my son with a good life.
Right.
I think that's important for people to see, because I don't think even here in the U.S. or let alone in other countries of the world, people associate, somebody with a disability being also a father.
Mm-hmm.
So, I remember my parents, didn't even think that I would know anything about sex, just because you're not supposed to, think about that. You're not gonna have,
Right.
So.
Well, clearly you figured that out.
Yeah. So I think, I think people need to realize that, hey, people with disabilities have lives as well. They have families. They make families, not just being a part of one. They're not just a burden on their parents or their caretakers or their siblings. But no, they want to be a part of their life, part of the community. Yeah.
Well, and when I think about you and your life and what you've done, I really feel like you set a great example of just being a high achiever in education and career and sport. And now obviously with some, high goals around being a great father. You seem like you're really focused around, being the best you can possibly be, no matter what area. And so I think that's, you have a lot to share, a lot to teach around that, because I don't know, not even just the disability community, but in general, I don't think everybody is as focused on achievement as you are. So I love that about you. All right. I'm giving you the microphone to wrap us up. Is there anything you haven't said or we haven't covered that you want to touch on? Like anything that just pops to mind?
I want to tell people to definitely try lots of different sports. Mm-hmm. And then once you find that one, try to go, as high as you can into it, because it can really take you places, different cities around the world. You meet different people, and even different places around the country. Yeah. I don't know if I wasn't into sports, if I would have been able to travel and see different states that I got to visit because I played bocce. So I think if you're gonna play a sport, do it all the way, so it gives you something back, and then you can give it back.
Yeah, I love that, and you're right. I feel like it's really fun to see the country and the world through sport. That's a fun reason to travel. It's different than just going to be a tourist, right? But it's a really cool way to see the country and the world. Is there an easy way for people to follow your journey as you get yourself ready for Paris and 2024 and LA 2028? Are you on social media? Like, where's the best place to follow your journey?
Probably, I'm on Twitter. I'm the Boccia man at Twitter.
All right. We'll drop the good handle. We'll drop that into the show notes so people can find.
And then Abdullah Anwar, just my name, is on Facebook.
Okay, yeah. Great. I think you and I are connected on Facebook. Yeah. So listen, AB, I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your journey, your crazy story. I'm just honored to be your friend and to be an observer in your road to Paris and LA, and know that Angel City Sports is here to support. And I'd love to work with you to grow the movement and find more athletes that hopefully you can help coach and mentor. And let's get the U.S. back in the game by Paris. Definitely. So thanks so much for your time today, and we'll see you on the boccia court soon.
All right, great. Talk to you soon.
Wow, what a journey AB has been on since birth. I'm thoroughly impressed by the courage his parents had to send him to the U.S. for a better quality of life. Please stay tuned for our next show featuring rising para-badminton star Miles Kraske. Miles is an incredibly determined and hardworking young athlete.